Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Charlott McAnsh with us today. McAnsh, trying to get that right. She is CEO at Sino Bounds. She's a super connector. Today we're gonna talk about network. We're gonna talk about community and about growing a business. This pod is brought to you by podfire.com. If you want to start your own podcast, monetize this podcast and scale it, you can go to podfire.com. Charlott, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and seek no bounds.
Thank you so much for having me here today. Yeah, I'm Charlott McAnsh. I am the founder and CEO of Sino Bounds Network and Community. I am a globetrotter. I love traveling. This is part of the reason why we set up the business. I've had several businesses that have been successful and maybe one or two that wasn't so successful, but that's how business life works. So really excited to be here today. Thank you.
My pleasure. And yes, last time you told me that you had this Mercedes Sprinter and you often travel. So let's start with that. Where did your love of traveling come from, and how does that fuel in the growth of your business?
I actually think it didn't come from my parents, to put it that way. And I just wanted to get away and see the world. And it was actually when I was 14, I started. I actually thought I needed to finish sort of my A levels first. So I did my education and then I moved over to the US at the age of 18 on my own, which was a fabulous way to travel. I recommend everybody to travel on their own at some point in their life because you just meet the most incredible people. So fast forward a little bit, nowadays I travel with a camper van called Dilys, which is Welsh name that actually stands for perfect. And she's just lovely. We love to take her away. We got a dog as well. So at the moment, that is the way we travel, mainly in the UK, but also sort of in Europe. But I also have a dream of having the camper van over in Canada. That's one of my goals for sure. So how it affects the business is that we can work whilst we're on the road. We run a nationwide and global network. And by doing so, we can actually turn up to places and have the face-to-face meetings, which are quarterly, actually on site as well. So meet up with the leaders across the UK and other areas as well. So that's just one of the things that you can do. Obviously, if you're an online business, you can go and travel wherever you want to and work whilst you're on the road.
Do you mostly target the UK, or is it international?
No, it's international as well. So we've got a global network and we've also got a European network. We also have Men in Business. So with one subscription, you can actually join any of the networks that are suitable to you that week. So we run a minimum of 4 to 5 networking events a week. We never set out to be a networking company, and that actually, I think, is our USP, because the communities always come first, and it's all about building relationships. We believe in the magic is in the one-to-ones, and that's where you actually form the relationships. And by having online sessions that are really time sufficient, you just reach a really lovely crowd of people who may be too busy to go to networking face to face and kind of have the kind of coffee morning network. So by focusing on building the relationships and listening and supporting each other, you actually create a really good referral scheme.
It's not an easy sell though. Networking, a lot of people hate it, and a lot of people don't see the ROI into it. So how do you make that sell?
I think if you're in business and you're not networking, you're really letting yourself down. I think a lot of people think it's about selling to the room. And then a lot of people don't like the 60-second pitches, which is what we scrapped. So you have an introduction, but then you focus on building the relationship. And for anyone who really doesn't like networking, I was probably one of those, even though I realized that I had networked all my life. My background is events and hospitality. And when I first started out in the networking sort of business and learning about networking, probably 10 years ago now, It was the 60 seconds, it was the fakeness of it, it was the selling to the room and all of those things that I didn't like. So the whole network that we run has been set up to actually suit what I love about networking. And I think if you're in business, you can't afford not to be seen. You need to be visible. You need to be visible on socials. Podcasts like this is amazing for businesses to kind of get their message across. But ultimately, people buy from people. And if you're visible and you're sharing your story and your journey in business, then people will buy from you because of your personality and finding the way that obviously they, people attract each other and who you can support. You also need to always think when you go to networking that it's not about you selling, it's about you giving and supporting others. And if you become known in the area of actually you're giving to other people, people are going to recommend your business naturally.
I agree with that. I started my career networking in events, and I think I was always like a social creature, although I'm introverted and never had any success. There I connected with folks and always added value, I think, to the convos, or was a cool young folk back then, but never got any sale. And then I started trying to scale that approach. I mean, the podcast is a good way to do it. I feel 1v1 pods to get to learn to know people. But I guess what people fear, it may be rational or not. There's certainly a part of it that is rational, but it's just to have these low ambition people that they talk to, or they're just not at the same stage, or they're trying to sell them something at these events. And the chemistry is just not there, and they need to endure that. So how can we fight that? Is it like doing stuff online and curating these communities? Because you can't really curate that like physically, and it just takes one bad apple to ruin the whole group, someone pitching everyone.
Yeah, totally agree with you. And I think that's the benefit of then the USP of Seen Bounce is the fact that you've got a platform where you can also follow up and connect and add friends. You can create groups. So, for example, you can have your own podcast group with all the people that you've had on the podcast as a private group or an open group where people can connect. And it's not about posting and such, it's about the support you can get. So, for example, I might be looking for somebody that needs something printed in Braille, which is quite unusual. I stick that in the chat of the groups and I find the right person. And because you know the people and they've been invited organically, you can then reconnect people with the person that you think might be most suitable, not just with the chemistry, but also for the budget. I think that's really, really important. I don't know about you, but if you've had experience of going to the networking events that you mentioned there, you will know the people that literally run around like headless chickens and handing out the business card and that sort of thing. It just doesn't work. You are never going to buy from someone that has handed over a business card to you and say, hey, buy my IT services. It's just not going to work. It most likely will end up in the bin. So take the time to listen to people and do something for them as well and create the relationship. But if it one of the most important thing is to follow up as well. So once you've been to the networking, if it's online or if it's in person, do follow up with a message on LinkedIn, perhaps quote something that you've spoken about. So say, I really like your podcast. I listened to the episode. I really want to learn more. Something like that, so you're creating that and follow up on building the relationship, because it's not just going to be a one-off session and they're going to go, oh great, I met Charles today and I'm going to buy from him. It just doesn't work like that. You need to work a little bit harder to create the relationship.
Tell me about your story and how you met your husband and how that changed your life not so long ago.
Well, Cinder Bands was actually created when Jamie became paralyzed from the waist down. He woke up paralyzed, which is something obviously that's very unusual. He then set up Cinder Bounds because he'd realized there wasn't any support for people that needed to adapt and diversify. And it became a platform for people to help and support people with different disabilities. and it also became an events platform. So he basically raised about £250,000 for charity. He did a lot of crazy challenges, and the whole point of Bounds was to support the community. Obviously, if we fast forward, when 2020 happened, is actually when I joined the business in 2019, and it was very much a sort of platform inclusive for disabilities. But in 2020, Jamie literally said the whole world has become disabled, and I guess I agree. Even if, you know, I don't have that experience, but he does, and we started supporting people to come on and become more visible online. And it's been an incredible journey, because I think we just created that support around the community, which is so much needed in business. And I always say to people when they're starting a business, it's about finding like-minded people that you can get support from, and also that you can support as well. Because sometimes your family and your friends may not really understand why you do what you do.
Like the journey as well, that for Jamie, that must have pretty much shook him, and he had other events in his life. How do you keep going through that as a couple?
It's challenging sometimes. This year we're actually doing Kilimanjaro in August. I think it's about listening and understanding each other. And also we have a huge support network, and we couldn't do it without the team, that's for sure. It's when you're a husband and wife, business as well, if anyone is listening into this, I think the most important thing when you have a husband-wife sort of business and that you are a team is that you are responsible for different areas of the business, and also having sort of regular meetings, because if you try and step on each other's toes, it's just going to get really complicated. And you also need to sort of have a little bit of a cutoff point when business stays in the office, and when you go home, you're then kind of right, okay, now it's family time.
Kilimanjaro, tell me more about that.
Um, Jamie's an adventurer, and when he became disabled, obviously he didn't think that he was ever going to be able to do something like that again. And his goal was Everest, well, actually Everest summit, but his body would shut down with he's got CRPS, complex regional pain syndrome. But 2 years ago, we reached the Everest Base Camp, which was his goal since he was 7 years old. And when he became disabled, he never thought it would be possible. He speaks all over the world, and he always wants to do different challenges. So we have basically our longest walk and talk in history was Everest Base Camp, and the next one is going to be Kilimanjaro. All of us have got our own business, and it's about the like-minded people and the teamwork that made us reach Everest Base Camp, and it will be the same for sure when we do Kilimanjaro.
And how do you do that in a wheelchair?
He doesn't, he uses a wheelchair sometimes now, but he does it on crutches. So he's got special crutches
Whoa.
that he'll do it on. So we're a very slow group. So, but it's sometimes for the better, because if you're doing something like that in altitude, actually being slow will help you. So that,
Yes,
yeah.
100%. Because yeah, I've done Pico de Orizaba a couple years ago, and yeah, we did it quite quick, and yeah, huge headache at the top, you know. The acclimatization is huge. And yeah, props for Jamie on crutches. That's incredible. Yeah, it's so inspiring. So what's next for you folks? Like, what do you have on the goals list for this year other than this?
So this year is to grow the network. So we got, like I said, we're just reaching out globally and in Europe as well. So it's growing the network and growing the team for us. And we're also looking to support businesses to become more inclusive, which will also obviously be available for the Bounds members. So there's lots of really exciting goals. We're working a lot with collabs and a lot of people in the online space. So collab online support. There's obviously virtual offices that you can join and so on. So that's very much in our focus. And also expos. So we got a couple of expos that are coming on board. One of the part of expos is that they don't find it hard to communicate in between their expeditions. So we support that with a platform so they can have their own community within Bounds.
Super inspiring. How do you play with masterminds and the back end of things? Because yeah, there's a fee to join. Is it like pure community? Do you have other ways to monetize this community? For example, I was thinking of having deals happen between members and taking a cut out of that. So what's the revenue model that you currently have, and what would be additional sources of income you could derive from that business?
So at the moment we got a membership. It's a free membership as well. So you can just sign up to our business directory and you can take part of certain things on the platform. Then you have the Directory Plus membership, which allows you to be part of one group on Bounce. And then you have the Networker package, which gives you unlimited networking, webinars, and so on. So the next focus is also partnerships. So we have last year we partnered up with Barclaycard, SumUp, StreamYard, HubSpot, so various different organizations. So that's really where you can get involved if you're more of an established business in the more corporate space. Because like yourself, we do podcasts and we do YouTube videos where we then promote in the adverts the more established sort of corporate businesses. So that's where they can benefit. We do have affiliate links and that sort of thing through the partnerships as well. The other focus is that we're looking to set up more of a high-end ticket where you can join roundtables and sort of discussions in the more corporate space. So that's something that's coming on. And we also run several webinars, both for startups and scale-ups and established businesses. So obviously their needs are very different. So we're looking, I think we're one of the only networks that actually support all three types of categories in that area.
Very interesting. Charlotte, where can people find out more about you online?
So the website is cenobounce.co.uk and we are everywhere on social. So just do @cenobounce and you can definitely give us a little follow and share your experience within business.